And you might need to take Macy's advice and be a turtle whisperer.
So explain that.
The turtle whisperer draws someone out of his or her shell. Welcome to the College of Valor, where we empower truth seekers with the art of reason. Hope is the motivation, truth is the goal. Everyday valor is the practice, better living is the result. Hello, Lydia.
Hi, Daddy.
What are we talking about today?
Oh man, we are going to be talking about personality, and we're specifically going to be looking into personality tests,
Oh,
and different models that kind of help us to understand different aspects of personalities. But first, we're going to be talking about why personality traits matter. Why do you think personality traits matter? So, um, this question is kind of multifaceted, I would say. Um, in order to have this world operate the way that it does, we need to have a lot of really unique people doing a lot of really unique things.
mm,
We need people to be very introspective and thinking about things and sort of reconfiguring the world to make it a better place. And then we need really happy, bubbly, super extroverted people to be going around and bringing people out of their shells and just spreading sunshine everywhere. And
turtle whisperers.
yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Macy.
So,
That's Macy's.
yeah. So, anyway, why do you think that personality traits matter, Dad?
I'm gonna I'm gonna deepen the question one layer. Go meta. Why do you think knowing that personality traits matters?
Oh man. Um, I believe on a personal level, knowing the personality traits that you have greatly impacts how you're able to view all sides of yourself and be able to be more honest with yourself, like the things that you do really really well, your superpowers, and then the opportunities for growth as well within your personality, because nobody's personality is the ideal perfect personality, but
Mm,
we all have these incredibly amazing characteristics that we can use to make the world better in our own unique way. And then we also have a lot of shortcomings with our personalities, where we can sort of tap into those and be able to kind of soften them a little bit in some ways, I would say. And it also just gives us a better idea of, potential career paths or why we interact with the world the way that we do. And um, it also helps us to strengthen relationships when we understand how we operate and how another person operates, so that we can, be more respectful, especially if somebody's, maybe one person is really, really extroverted and they just get their energy from being around other people. And then others get their energy from being alone and kind of recharging, and understanding those powerful differences and how they um I guess just understanding those differences with how people operate helps us to love other people a lot better.
I like that. I was getting ready to head that direction, and then you took us there. Um, it helps to know yourself. Timid noce, know thyself, right? It
Right.
helps to know yourself, because if you have a realistic view of yourself, you probably are better prepared to encounter the world, I would say. However, I also encourage people to avoid becoming too introspective, because you become egocentric and then everything's about you. And then in those situations, it's hard to actually relax in a crowd, because you're always worried about yourself, and that doesn't work. So we don't want to be too introspective, but there's a time and a place for everything. And knowing yourself well can really empower you. But what Lydia just said, if you can understand why other people are different than you are and understand a little bit about why and where they're coming from, it can help you to love better. But more than that, you can appreciate the fact that when you disagree, there might be some fundamental reasons. And when you compare notes and choose to work together in those disagreements, then sometimes the synergy that comes out of that provides actually the best outcome, because personality traits create biases. And understanding those biases is very important. So, this podcast is about becoming a better you, right? It's about living a better life and building a better life. Understanding yourself and understanding others, these personality traits, I think, is a skill set that can really help with that, as long as we don't get too egocentric or introspective. So, there are various personality tests and personality models out there. The goal is not to put yourself or anyone else in a box. And with these personality models, what people often do is say, oh, well, you are a 6. Therefore, they start thinking of you as the definition of a 6. And that's unfair, because every single person is unique and we all have a blend of personality traits. And some are more distinct than others and play a bigger role in our life decisions and how we behave, obviously. But I think I just want to throw out that little bit of warning. We shouldn't try to stereotype. We always go back to that. We shouldn't stereotype people by the number on an Enneagram or a horoscope, for that matter. You're a Scorpio. That's why you're like this or that or the other, because all Scorpios, we don't want to do that.
Right.
We don't want to do that. It's fun.
The horoscope is weirdly accurate sometimes, though.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's actually personality traits kind of hidden behind a subterfuge or something. But anyway, all of that said, we don't want to overly generalize. We don't want to stereotype, but exploring these things help us to learn more about ourselves and others. So we're going to spend our time today on the Big Five Ocean personality model. I'll probably just call it Ocean. And that's an acronym. So we're going to go through the acronym and tell you what that means. And then we're going to tell you why this is important and how it can help you to live a better life. If your personality is in conflict with another person's personality, you might think you're debating a topic of some sort. You might be having a personality conflict, and these personalities could run all the way to the core of your identities.
Right.
So when that happens and there's a conflict, people get really confused. They just like, I cannot understand why that other person is behaving like that, right? It just doesn't click. Or it could escalate really large because something that's so core to your person is in conflict with something that is so core and fundamental to someone else's person. So you can tell that these things are kind of foundation rocking. It's like the two of you together create an earthquake, right? It's good to be aware of this. These personality types, they do grow out of both nature and nurture or the combined epigenetic influence, but they are foundational. That's the main point.
Yeah.
You hear the saying sometimes, different strokes for different folks. And that's, I think, mostly a positive thing. Some people say another thing like, well, there's no accounting for taste. It's a similar statement. That's just kind of colloquialisms that recognize that people are different and that what excites one person may be a real drudgery for someone else.
Right.
And certain experiences and behaviors, things that excite one person may not excite another, different strokes for different folks. And it doesn't mean the other person is strange because you don't agree on what's interesting or exciting or valuable.
Right.
It means that you could have different personality traits. Your core identities could be built on different foundations. Know thyself and know others. That's what this is about. And if you learn how to understand various personality traits and how they apply, then I think you'll be better equipped to navigate this world and this life. And that's
Mm.
why personality traits matter. So, Lydia, let's go into ocean, since that's the one we decided to do more of a deep dive on. I think this is a really good. Oh, no. I did not mean to
Deep
do that.
diving in the ocean.
I did not mean to do that. But ocean is an acronym. And what does O stand for?
Openness.
Openness. Okay. We're going to read some definitions because other people are going to say it better than we do, I think. I'll read openness. Okay.
Okay.
Openness emphasizes imagination and insight the most out of all 5 personality traits. Now, one thing I wanted to point out right there that's important is that it included how the others can still emphasize imagination and insight, but openness does more than the others. I like to make that point because this is complex stuff. We're
Right.
not going to try to put you in a box, right? It's these things are all blended and they're influencing each other, and it's kind of more of a web than it is a continuum and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, let me start over. Openness emphasizes imagination and insight the most out of all 5 personality traits. People who are high in openness tend to have a broad range of interests. They are curious about the world and other people and are eager to learn new things and enjoy new experiences. They tend to be more adventurous and creative. Now, conversely, people that are low in this personality trait are much more traditional and might even struggle with abstract thinking. Okay, so that's openness. One thing I want to point out is that all 5 of these traits are a continuum within their own trait. So you could be more open or less open, right? And on the right side of the continuum, well, it doesn't matter left or right, but we can just say it this way. If you are less open, then you're going to be very, very consistent and very, very cautious. But if you are more open, then you're going to be more inventive and more curious and more adventurous. And it's a continuum. So these are usually ranked in the results from a scale of 1 to 100. It's not actually 1 to 100, it's percentiles, right? So if you look at it and you say in openness, oh, I'm just making this up. I'm a 57. That means that you are more open than 57% of the population. Or if you went into a room with 100 people in it, then 57 of those people would be less open than you are. That might be another way to say it. So you get a number and then these all get blended. Okay. The next is C, conscientiousness. So Lydia, read that one to us.
Conscientiousness is one defined by high levels of thoughtfulness, good impulse control, and goal-directed behaviors. Highly conscientious people tend to be organized and mindful of details. They plan ahead, think about how their behavior affects others, and are mindful of deadlines. So somebody who is pretty high in conscientiousness, and towards the 80s or the 90s in the percentile range, they are well prepared for different things. They really enjoyed having a deadline and sticking to it, and they're very sort of sequential in that they have a plan of attack and they get through the important things that they need to pretty quickly, and they're very detail oriented, they're very organized, and they love having a set schedule. And if you're low in conscientiousness, you hate that. you you really enjoy making messes and not picking them up. You do not like schedules or planning ahead or structure, and you really enjoy just taking something from its correct location where it's supposed to be and just leaving it wherever you want to. There's also a lot of procrastination with conscientiousness. where people, instead of completing the important task right away, they will just wait until the very last second, and they may even not be able to complete that task at all, just kind of depending on the person. So it's kind of type A versus type C that we're talking about here.
Well, it's kind of funny because it's not that one is good and one is bad. And I want to stress that
Right.
we need all types, different strokes for different folks. And some of these happy go lucky, devil may care people, they've found a corner on happiness, a way to live life without worrying about everything. Whereas someone that's highly conscientious needs to have everything in its place, including everybody else sometimes, which you can't achieve.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
exhausting. Okay, so that was O was openness, C was conscientiousness. I always think of the conscientious person as the accountant, right? That's the way I
Oh,
remember it.
yeah.
I think of someone that's very open as the adventurer, and someone who's very conscientious as the accountant. That's
Mm-hmm.
oversimplification. It just helps me. The next letter in our acronym is E for extroversion. Oh, I'm glad this one fell to me. We didn't plan this, but I love this one. Okay, extroversion is a personality trait characterized by excitability, sociability, talkativeness, assertiveness, and high amounts of emotional expressiveness. Where do you think I rank on that?
Oh, man. Way the heck up there.
That's probably why I'm
90
doing this show, right?
98th percentile,
I
maybe?
don't think it's that high. Actually, I did take the test and I did write down my score. It's only 94%.
Oh, really? Hmm.
Yeah, so if you put me in a room of 100 people, there will be 6 people more extroverted than I am. But Lydia
That's
and I
great.
joke that we're both extroverted introverts.
Yep,
And so
absolutely.
I'm not actually fully extroverted. I'm glad there's 6 people more extroverted than I am. Um, People high in extroversion are outgoing and tend to gain energy in social situations. Being around others helps them to feel energized and excited. People that are low in this trait, they might be called introverts. They tend to be more reserved. They have less energy to expend in social settings, and social events can actually feel draining. Introverts often require a period of solitude and quiet in order to recharge. Now, I want to stress this. This is the reason why I was excited to talk about this one. Our society, our Western society, celebrates extroversion. It's the way the movies are made and the television commercials are made, and it's the political leaders that are out stumping for the political office. They're acting very extroverted. You go to a pep rally, they're acting very extroverted where they are or not. You go to some sort of a marketing meeting for whatever company you're in, and everyone's pretending to be an extrovert, whether they are or not, because our society celebrates that.
Right.
But I would like to say that that's not completely accurate. And the reason is because introverts are extraordinarily important in our society. And being introverted is every bit as special and valuable as being extroverted.
Hmm.
It's
So,
different strokes for different folks again. And I want to point something out. We think of politicians as extroverted, but many introverts can turn on that extroverted charm. They can go speak in front of the crowd and shake hands and smile and make everyone feel like $1,000,000. And then they go home exhausted because it's very hard to do that when you're an introvert, but they can do it if they choose to. Whereas the extrovert will come home energized because that was a lot of fun. The extrovert may have a really hard time spending time alone, enjoying that self time. And
hmm.
I'll confess, I have never enjoyed being alone. It's just not my thing. And when I am alone, I either have to be like writing or creating something or reading something and learning something because I'm not satisfied just sitting there alone and being quiet. Doesn't work for me. Um, because I'm not very introverted, right? But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. We need the introverts too, and our society is overemphasizing the extroverts. I really believe that. We need to make sure that we are including all of the wonderful contributions of the introverts. So there we go. What's the
Right.
next letter?
The next letter is A, and it stands for agreeableness. So this personality characteristic includes attributes such as trust, altruism, kindness, affection, and other things like that. So people who are really high in agreeableness tend to be pretty cooperative, and people that are low in agreeableness are pretty competitive and can even have sometimes a bit more of a manipulative streak. So somebody who's really high in agreeableness is um somebody that you would probably see that has that very happy, very sunny, loving personality, um that is always asking everyone, oh, how are you, how are you doing, and it seems like they really care, and they're pretty empathetic. If whether you're going through something incredible or you're feeling pretty sorrowful about something, they're just there with you in that moment, and it's almost like they can adopt your emotions for um their own. And so they're
Mm.
just incredible people to talk to because you never feel more heard than you would when you're talking to somebody who's pretty high in agreeableness.
What is your score in agreeableness, Lydia?
98.
You were describing yourself there. I can tell that you relate to that one. You kind of left the definition behind and started talking about what it's like to live that way, um, which is awesome. But tell us about someone who's low in agreeableness.
Oh man. So somebody who's pretty low in agreeableness don't really care about other people as much. They're not super interested in what's going on with other people. They don't really care about how other people are feeling, or their problems. And even when you're pretty low in agreeableness, you can, like I said, you can be pretty manipulative to get what you want, and you can even be pretty mean to other people as well. Like you can just insult them or belittle them. So it's a pretty apathetic personality type, I would say.
Here's the funny thing. I have known a lot of people who are very low in agreeableness, but once you get past that kind of gruff exterior, you find out that they're loving, wonderful people on the inside. But not everybody, right?
Right.
And what often the person that is disagreeable, there'll be someone that you'll say something, and instead of saying something like, "Oh, that's interesting," and "Why do you feel that way?" and "Wow, that I kind of feel this other way, but I understand where you're coming from." Instead of that kind of language, they say, "You're full of crap. That is stupid."
Right.
Disagreeable people don't mind just calling it out and creating conflict
Right.
because getting along isn't a high priority for them. And some of those people make really good leaders, actually,
Yeah.
because they make quick decisions and move on.
Right. They've got that power charisma.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, they have to learn how to, I guess, shepherd the flock a little bit, or else they're not really going to succeed for very long. But people that are disagreeable can learn that too. And so,
Right.
one left is in. Oh boy. Now, this one's hard to explain, I think.
Have fun, Dad.
What's that?
I said have fun.
N stands for neuroticism. And neuroticism has a negative connotation straight out of the chute. And I want to kind of dispel that. What we're talking about here is the scale of neuroticism. It's how neurotic you are or unneurotic you are. And it's kind of strange because it has this negative connotation. And I say neurotic, people automatically think bad. Well, not necessarily. If you're a little bit more neurotic, that means you're more cautious, maybe. You might be a more protective parent. You might be better at nurturing children. Um, People that are neurotic are careful in the sense that they want to make sure that things are lined out and being done the right way before we proceed. You know,
Mm,
they don't want to risk going across the old rickety bridge until the engineer gets there and says it's safe. Someone that's very low in neuroticism will say, I'll cross the bridge, and if I make it, everybody else can come. So, but neurotic people serve a very important role in society. They're the safety people. They're the ones that throw on the brakes when the brakes need to be thrown. And I think that I have to be honest, I'm very low in neuroticism. And so sometimes when I see someone that's more highly neurotic, I'm more likely to have a personality conflict with that type person than almost anything else, because I have a hard time relating to that, but it's a growth area for me. And of course, extreme neuroticism can be crippling.
right.
Extreme neuroticism can be a mental disorder.
Right.
Any of these in the extreme can be a mental disorder,
Yeah.
but extreme neuroticism can really be crippling. But everyone has that little safety mechanism inside. And that's what we're talking about with neuroticism. So let me read the definition. Neuroticism is a personality trait characterized by sadness, moodiness, emotional instability. Whoa. Individuals who are high in neuroticism tend to experience mood swings, anxiety, irritability, and sadness. Those low in this personality trait tend to be more stable and emotionally resilient. Now, that very definition sounded a little bit negative to me,
Yeah.
but here are some of the traits for someone that's high in neuroticism. Experiences a lot of stress, worries about things, gets upset easily, experiences dramatic shifts in mood, feels anxious, struggles to bounce back after stressful events. Someone that's low in neuroticism is usually emotionally stable, deals well with stress, rarely feels sad or depressed, doesn't worry much, and is very relaxed. I don't know if that's comprehensive. I'll just say it that way.
Right.
But when you think about how neuroticism influences people's decisions, for some reason, it seems to be a pretty pronounced personality trait. And it's one that I keep looking into increasingly. Like I said, it's a growth area for me. So the four letters are OCEAN, ocean. And by the way, you can find this stuff all over the web. I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of websites are devoted to these personality traits. But what we were using was verywellmind.com/the big five personality dimensions. And just wanted to give the reference. I looked at a few, and this one seemed to be pretty good general definitions of the traits. And so we decided to use it as our cliff notes. So what do we do with all this stuff? Why did we go through all that? And you may wonder, well, I wonder where I feel on those traits, or where I fall on those traits. And if you go through them one at a time, you'll see yourself somewhere. If you take one of the tests online, you'll get more information, obviously. But O for openness. How open are you to new experiences, new ideas, creativity, that kind of thing, right? C for conscientiousness. How careful are you about the details versus I don't care about the details, right? And that's funny because conscientious people look at these non-conscientious people and they think they're crazy, and they kind of judge. But the opposite also happens. The people that
Right.
are footloose and fancy free look at these super conscientious people and they say, I don't want
Why
to
are
be
you
around
harshing my mellow, dude?
them. Yeah, why are you so worried about everything all the time? Who cares? But that's the point. That's the reason why we're talking about this. E was, what was that one? What was he?
Extroversion.
Oh, extroversion. Um, the extroverted people in our society tend to think the introverts are a little bit strange, and the introverts just want to crawl under a rock sometimes.
Right.
They're both very, very valuable and necessary for a healthy society.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about that one is that I don't think introversion is any worse or better than extroversion, and vice versa. It's a very balanced continuum. So I love that
Yeah.
one. A, agreeableness. So where do you fall in agreeableness? Do you like to get along with people and for everyone to be on the same page? Do you like to agree to disagree? You want to avoid conflict? Agreeableness. Or are you someone that likes to take a stand and tell everyone where to go and what to do? If you
Right.
don't agree with me, well, you're just wrong. Then that would be someone that's much more disagreeable. And then the last one is neuroticism. You can think of neuroticism as how safe or nervous does this world make you? That's one way to think of it.
Mm.
Okay. Something that I like to do with these personality traits is to think of different dynamics that we experience in life, interacting with others, and then say, how do these traits influence that interaction?
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's where it's absolutely the most valuable. And my mind was kind of blown during the COVID-19 experience because these personality traits started expressing themselves in spades. I didn't
Right.
even know that some of my friends had these certain personality traits until something that was really important and life impacting happened. And then all of a sudden, it became very apparent that they had marked personality traits that we obviously often didn't share. And so a lot of people complained with the COVID-19 experience about isolation and disagreement and division. I think a lot of that division came out of, a potentially life-threatening life experience that caused people to express their personality traits in spades.
Right.
It was fascinating, and that's a whole other study. But let's kind of be more generic than just the COVID-19 experience. I guess the point is, the more extreme an experience is, the more marked the influences of these personality traits tend to be. So the
Right.
more important something is, the more likely these personality traits are going to start to surface. And so the way I like to think of it is when you have a little bit of disagreement or a debate about something, or you just don't feel like the right path forward matches what someone else thinks the right path forward is, then it's time to pull out the ocean chart and say, now, what were those personality traits and how does this matter? And I think that you can really get a lot of insight by doing that. So I don't want to overstate it. Let's dive into some of this stuff. So, Lydia, right versus wrong. What do you think about how personality traits influence that?
If you're neurotic,
Hmm.
I would say with right versus wrong, um, the the debate becomes a lot more emotional rather than logical. So your stance on the issue becomes very deep rooted in your emotions, and your emotions are deep rooted in your identity. So it can be pretty difficult when you're debating somebody if you're highly neurotic because um if you're very high neuroticism and you're debating somebody who's very low in neuroticism, they're trying to get their more logical point across that is emotionless, and you may be thinking, why is this person thinking that way, and why are they just like not even feeling about the impact that this thing could have? And so it's just coming at the same issue from very different emotional experiences, and that can cause very different opinions. And a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of times, if you're really high in neuroticism, your opinion is coming from a core place of fear and uncertainty, and trying to,
Or protection.
you're not right, right. You're trying not to win, but you're trying, and instead of trying to win, you're trying not to lose, I guess,
You're
is
trying to protect something.
right.
You might be protecting yourself against anxiety. Or here's something I like to think about. This is very surface and simple, but I think it helps. So you're backpacking with some friends It's in the springtime, the snow's melted, and there was a rainstorm yesterday. And you're going down the trail and you come to a mountain river. And it's a little bit deep. The rapids are going and churning because of the snow melt and the recent rain. And someone in the group says, right on, this can be fun. Let's see if we can get across. And the neurotic person says, no way am I ever going to do that. Just hearing the river 5 minutes ago scared the socks off of me. Forget it.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
There's also a lot of openness in that discussion as well. Right. It's not just neuroticism in that trait. It's also openness, because you got the adventurer who wants to try something new, who's thinking, you know what, if it sweeps me downstream, I'll have a heck of a ride and I can swim out the other side. That'll be great. Right. Where the neurotic person, or the person that's less open, less adventurous, would be like, I'm not going to take any chances. People are going to get hurt here, and they want to protect the whole group. So the neurotic people, in my life experience, quite often want to control the less neurotic people.
Right.
Because it makes them feel safer.
Right.
So if you are highly neurotic, make note. Say, oh, wow, do I try to control others to make myself feel safe?
Mm.
Because that's a personality trait, and it's justifiable. I mean, it's who you identify as being, but the other people don't.
Right.
So you might have to try to separate your perception of safety from how you judge other people's safety. And I would like to say to people that are not very neurotic, especially people that are high in openness as well, when you're interacting with someone who is neurotic, don't say, oh, you chicken, come on, let's do it. Because you are attacking the core of their being, what they identify as. And
Right.
they may not even know that. But now that you know about the personality traits, now that you know about neuroticism, you can say, oh, this is really important to that person. I can at least sympathize, right? Even if I disagree, I can at least say, oh, I bet you they're feeling some pretty strong emotions around this right now. That might help you to come to some sort of an agreement that works better.
Right. Yeah.
Another one, but that was kind of right versus wrong. You see how this works. So how about uh, getting a good, stable job versus being an entrepreneur?
I would say that there's a lot of overlap with this one, actually. Um, I would say that a good stable job is probably somebody who's a little bit higher in neuroticism because it feels more secure. Um, Whereas somebody who is more of the entrepreneurial mindset is, um, they're able to handle the stress of the risk of having an entrepreneurial venture. But I think that they can both be pretty high in agreeableness and openness,
Yeah.
and conscientiousness as well, and extroversion. So yeah, there's a lot of overlap there.
You know, we're dwelling a little bit on neuroticism. I want to go to some of the others. So entrepreneurs generally are more open. They rank highly in openness, and low in neuroticism. Entrepreneurs are just like that. They may or may not be more extroverted, but a lot of entrepreneurs are very extroverted because they kind of have the sales mentality. It's like, I'm going to get out there and bust my butt and shake the bushes and make this happen. And that doesn't terrify them. Instead, that sounds like fun. And
Right.
so they might be extroverted. Agreeableness, interestingly enough, I don't really want to prejudge here, but I would guess that a lot of entrepreneurs are less agreeable because they believe that they're right. That's why they're willing to take the risk.
Hmm.
But I might be wrong about that. It could probably go either way. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to illustrate how these things can shake out, right? Um, Conscientiousness. Now, if you are very open and you are low neuroticism and you are an entrepreneur and you are extroverted, you darn well better find a conscientious partner, because your accounting is just going to be horrible, and you're the idea person and you won't be able to implement the ideas because they come so fast. You're hopscotching from one shiny object to the next. Squirrel! And you won't get anything done. So you need someone that can implement the ideas and be conscientious about the follow through and making sure that the necessary steps are taken. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, you better find a conscientious sidekick or
Right.
partner or boss, right? You need the balance. So, okay, left versus right. Uh-oh. Conservative versus liberal. Actually, these are actually very well mapped out on the personality charts. People have studied left versus right, and there's some strong proclivities. I'll just say that much. I don't have that mapping memorized. But where do you think it falls, Lyd?
Well, generally, based off of the things that I've read, people that are higher in neuroticism are more left leaning.
Yep, that's true.
Um, and they're also pretty high in openness and agreeableness, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think you're right. And it's interesting because we were talking about um, neuroticism and openness in different ways before, but people on the left, okay, here's my summary of left versus right. And it's oversimplification, but I think it applies and it's a little bit generous. People on the left say, let's fix it. That's the openness, the creative side. They want to change things for the better, right?
Right.
So people on the left say, let's fix it. People on the right say, don't break it. So the people that are more conservative are conserving what they feel is good and works, right? And they're not as open. So conservatives tend to be less open, a little less creative. But here's the point I wanted to make about that. The left saying, let's fix it. The right saying, don't break it. They're both saying, we want the best we can get. We want to take care of everybody. We can
Right.
be generous with each other. And when you start breaking down these personality traits, you'll suddenly begin to understand why the person has political leanings one way or the other. And you might
Hmm.
be able to sympathize again, be more compassionate with the other side.
Yeah.
So, um, we already talked about safe versus unsafe in the first one,
Right.
right versus wrong. So we'll skip that. And then freedom versus rules. This is a big one for me. This is a big one for me. What do you think about that, Lydia? Where does this fall?
I would say if you're highly neurotic, you value rules because it's predictable.
Keep people safe,
Yep.
make everybody
You're,
comply with the right way
yep,
to do it.
right. And then if you're more low in neuroticism, it's you find safety in the freedom
Mm-hmm.
instead of in the rules. Yeah. What other components of the personality types do you think fall under freedom versus rules?
Well, conscientiousness. Conscientious people are conscientious about what? The
The
rules,
rules.
right? So they're conscientious about the rules. That's why accountants are really good at taxes and stuff like that because they like to know what the rules are and they're conscientious about making sure that they're obeyed, or at least are conscientious about the way they disobey them,
Right.
which could be too, right? Um, Extroversion versus introversion. I think it could go either way, really. But I get the feeling that extroverts like less rules because they like more freedom to express themselves.
Right.
And so, you know, that's another reason why I think entrepreneurs are often extroverted because
Hmm.
they're wanting to go out and change up things and they don't want anyone to tell them what they can and can't do. You know, they want to go out and succeed. They don't want to go out and comply.
Right.
Um, let's see, agreeableness. That one could probably go either way.
Yeah.
But the way that it expresses itself is that if someone is breaking a rule and other people are commenting on it or talking about it, right? um, that's where you'll see the agreeableness spectrum pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And so one person might say, for instance, if you're really agreeable, you might say, well, I can understand why that person is breaking that rule. Um, they're somewhat justified. And while it may be illegal, or maybe it's just bucking the rules, there's no legality involved, the rules of proper society, so to speak, right? It's like, well, I can see why that is, and blah blah blah. And then another person will be, nope. Let me give one example to clarify. I was having a conversation with a group of friends, and I was talking about agreeing to disagree, and how we can all get along, and how these things aren't so important as all that. What really matters is friendship. Obviously, I'm fairly agreeable. And one of the guys in the group spoke up and said, I am so done with that. I just don't have room in my life for people that disagree anymore.
Whoa.
I was like, really? I was shocked. But then I stopped and I'm like, oh, I am very high in the agreeableness spectrum. This other person is not, right? And so I was willing to tolerate differences of opinion and move forward. And he just really felt like everyone should agree.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting point to. I mean, I obviously don't want a bunny trail, but with every single part of these big five personality traits, tolerance is a pretty key component in all of them.
What is tolerance, by the way?
Well, it's that word has kind of taken on a bit of a different meaning nowadays, I would say. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I my hope at least is that the original definition of tolerance was just tolerating somebody else's opinion, like, they say something that you disagree with, but you'll be okay with. I don't want to use the word tolerance. I'm having such a hard time.
I'll just say it. Okay. Tolerance has been redefined and it's abused. There, that's my opinion. And you can disagree, but please be tolerant with that. Um, so,
Yep.
tolerance used to mean, like Lydia was saying, agreeing to disagree, loving somebody even if they don't agree with you about things that you care about. That's tolerance. Compassion, that sort of thing. But what tolerance kind of became was, here's a set of societal rules that we think are important. And if you disagree with us, you're not tolerant.
Right.
Well, that's not tolerance. That's the opposite of tolerance. But they would call people intolerant if they disagreed. Disagreeing is not intolerant. Being intolerant is when you say you can't disagree. You must comply. That's intolerant, right?
Right.
So the people that started twisting the definition of tolerance actually started saying, if you don't agree with me, you're not tolerant. And that's not tolerant. So it's
Right.
just everything got turned on its head. That was kind of mind blowing to me, because I believe that words have meaning and meaning matters, and we shouldn't change the meaning of words just for convenience. So
Yeah.
anyway, um, which leads us, we have a couple other points I want to make real fast. First is synergy. And I'm going to take this one, Lydia. When people from different backgrounds with different opinions and different personality traits are willing to work together and explore together why they feel the way they feel, why they believe the way they believe, they compare their epistemologies, and they actually do the hard work of understanding the other person, keeping these personality traits in mind, which empowers you in these scenarios, then what comes out of that is synergy. Usually, you can come up with a solution that may not completely please people on opposite extremes, but it probably works better on the average for the whole. And if you can get two people that disagree to at least come together somewhere and say, we can move forward now, you usually end up with kind of a more central, moderate approach that I think is less volatile and less extreme, and usually a better solution for everybody.
Right.
Sometimes you come up with something that's better than either person could have come up with alone. Sometimes the synergy is so amazing. It's like, I never thought of that. Holy cow, am I glad you are here. That perspective changed everything. You know what we can do? That's synergy.
Mm. Yeah, that's such an ancient idea too. I mean, if you think about yin and yang,
Yeah, goes way back,
yeah.
way back. And grace and understanding. Why does that matter in this conversation?
Well, because it's crucial to have grace for other people, and it's not that you're accepting the differences, it's just that you're allowing the differences space to be okay,
Hmm.
even if they're different from yours. And that is understanding as well, actually.
It does really help me, Lydia, when I can begin to have insights into someone's core personality traits, their identity. It helps me to be more compassionate when I disagree with them.
Right.
And the reason that I wanted to talk about ocean today was because if everybody understood this a little bit better, then we could learn to utilize people that have strengths in one area versus another. Say, oh, this is the person that's really good at this. That's their core personality. It's what they love. They feel so fulfilled, and that's so rewarding for them. Let them do it. Right.
Yep.
Someone else is over here and you're like, okay, now your personality type is really good at this, and that just jazzes you up, so we're going to let you do that.
Yeah.
It's powerful when you realize we're not all the same. We're not homogenous. We don't need to be homogenous. We need to be diverse, and we need to celebrate those differences and take advantage of them. That's
Mm.
synergy, right?
Yeah.
So, I want to leave this conversation with one thought, which is walk a mile. Don't judge
Yeah.
a person till you walk a mile in his or her shoes. Um, these old sayings don't always make sense in our modern world because we have a plethora of shoes to choose from, and we only get the ones that are comfortable and fit right. But that wasn't always the case. There was one cobbler in town, and shoes were very expensive, and people had to wear whatever they had. And, you get grumpy if your feet hurt. If your shoes are tearing up your feet, thinking about cramps and blisters and everything else, that's what this is about. Walk a mile in their shoes, see what they're going through, see what their core personality traits are. And don't judge a person just because you're different in your personality traits than they are. Instead, take a moment to imagine what it must be like for that person. Try to walk a mile in that person's shoes. And then I think you'll experience more compassion, more understanding.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that even coming at it from the person who's scored really high in all of the openness and being agreeable and extroverted, it's also really valuable to glean some insight from the people who are in the lower percentiles for those things,
Sure.
because you can learn how to, maybe if you're super extroverted, to learn some characteristics on how to appreciate being, adopting some introverted tendencies that could grow you in some aspect of your life. Or um, if you're really, really agreeable, then there's a chance that you're also getting walked on. So
Oh boy. Yeah.
it's it's also really beneficial to look at the people that are not so agreeable and say, "Oh, wait, so I can actually be very kind. I can be agreeable, but to a point to where I don't get walked on. So I really like that you said that because it can go both ways.
Yeah, it really can. And you extreme extroverts out there, of course, I'm an extrovert too. We have to learn to give the introverts a little bit of room to breathe. And it's okay. Don't take up all the space in the room. Share some of that air. Don't be all the hot air, really. And you might need to take Macy's advice and be a turtle whisperer.
So explain that.
The turtle whisperer draws someone out of his or her shell.
Oh,
Isn't that sweet?
that's adorable.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so Ocean, the big five personality types, you probably can see now how valuable it is to know yourself and to be able to, in some way, know others and then learn how to be compassionate about where other people are coming from. And the synergy that can come out of that is magnificent. And the world would be a better place if we could all learn these skills.
Mm,
We might be able to, instead of the left versus right butting heads all the time, we might be able to begin to compare and contrast and come together and get some synergy. And that's what we really need. We don't need more conflict in our society. We need solutions. And you can be a person who can create those solutions if you understand these personality traits. It's a powerful tool.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. Well, as
anything else?
always, you guys, I don't think so.
All
I
right.
just hope that we gave you guys some food for thought. And as always, this is coming from a place of love. We're hoping to help you guys to build a really solid foundation and understanding of yourself and other people so that you can thrive and help those around you to thrive as well.
Absolutely. And as always, we love you guys. Take care.